Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
We'll be
Every
He
time
didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Hey everyone, how you doing, man? It is Two Guys in Hockey Talk. Glad to be back here. I am Evan Rev Reynolds, and I got my colleague beside me, my co-host.
Pawel, the Cat Insider. How are you guys doing? Evan, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous. It's been a fabulous week. I got a lot of little hockey skaters around me. All my great, as in great-grandchildren, but great hockey skaters of the future. I could put my own team together. I just got a recent announcement. Our 15th grandchild is on its way, so I am ready to field almost a full hockey team, man.
So are you going to do a Rev top 15 for all your grandkids? Who ranks where, and then really upset the family or really get them going? Which we got coming up a little bit later. I know.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
I did want to say, when I was in Vancouver with my niece, who's 6 years old, you know, she's like, oh, I want to tune into your podcast. I said, okay, here's the link. And so she's watching it with my wife, and they're sitting and chatting. And she looks over at my wife and says, you know, this is kind of boring, but it's good for people who like hockey stuff, but just not for me. So welcome, everyone. Grab a beverage.
I got it. I got it, man. I got it.
Season 5, episode 9.
I love it. Love it. I love it.
I am all over the place. See? Cheers. Hope
Leave the advertising to me.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome. Let us know where you're coming in from. We got a lot jam-packed show tonight. Evan, where do you want to start?
First of all, let me just give a big shout out though to our opening song that you guys all heard. That's by Penny Billionaires. You'll notice in our top corner of our page, the PB. You can follow them on YouTube, anywhere you follow your music, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. Penny Billionaires, an electronic hard rock band out of Phoenix, Arizona. They are coming on the scene. I was just doing some training the other day, non-hockey related. Guess my background music, man. Penny Billionaires. Got some new fans for you boys. I'm sure Jack is going to love that. So the other thing I just wanted to mention, if you are looking to follow them, know that we have the exclusive rights to Invincible. Nobody else. Nobody, brother, but us. So thank you to Penny Billionaires.
Did you start your workout by starting to talk hockey as that song finished? And you're like, hey, everyone. And people at the gym are just staring at you like, who's this crazy person?
Almost. But hey, you mentioned we got a jam-packed show.
Yes.
Originally, so our I don't know what it is, man. This season, it's been tough trying to book our guys and keep them on schedule. So one of our partners, the Kalkaska Battlers, Andrew Dibble. Andrew, if you're out there, haven't got a response back from you. Hope you're safe. Make sure, send me a note, check in on me. I think that we just kind of got our wires crossed on our communication. So they're not going to be with us tonight. But actually, Andrew, I'm kind of glad because we have so much content to cover. We're going to be jumping across hockey leagues and across teams in different hockey leagues. We have a plethora of stuff to talk about. So, all right, man, let's go for it. Let's start with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
All right. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are now, along with the Ottawa Senators, Minnesota Wild, and Detroit Red Wings, out in Sweden for the Swedish World Series there to perform. And the star of the show of the Toronto Maple Leafs is none other than William Nylander. Isn't it, Evan? The guy who's coming up for a contract, who's been playing dynamic for that team, been one of their best players, probably on a bargain contract now after Everyone
my
complained
goodness.
when he signed that. If everyone recalls the chaos surrounding that contract negotiation with Kyle Dubas, and he's showing the boys around. Now, there's a few other players on there that are of Swedish descent. You know, you're looking at Timothy Liljegren, who's been injured after that Brad Marchand incident.
Exactly.
You know, William Lagesson played for Edmonton. He's been playing very well. A few of the other guys, including some of the other players from the other teams going. Evan, the team is up and down. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of rumblings that them and Calgary, which we'll get to in a bit, they may be trade partners with Nikita Zadorov. But right now, Toronto needs to figure out its defensive system, because that is the only thing that is running. It's struggling. And let's be honest, Evan, they are a dynamic forward duo, but on the back end, they're a little weak. And John Klingberg has really, really struggled. Your thoughts on the Toronto team thus far this season? Because they're pretty much around where they were last year.
Yeah.
But you've got some impending RFAs and UFAs coming up here.
So I think that we're all going to be in agreement here that defense needs help. This is not a lot unlike the Edmonton Oilers, where you're dealing with a defensive. In fact, I actually thought at the beginning of the year the defense was more solid in Edmonton than in Toronto. But I do believe Toronto has a deeper lineup on top. Maybe they don't have Nylander this year. He's playing like Draisaitl. So between Matthews and Nylander, maybe not so much Marner. Marner's having a bit of a down, but I consider that good for Toronto. Marner not as elite as the last 2 years, because that just shows you there's some room. And sometimes we don't know. There's injuries that are tweaking systems and so forth. So I think the problem lies a little bit within, and this is the hard part, when you got an offensive fire that can just plug away and just bring goal after goal. It's really hard. Do they pinch? Do they not pinch? They want to keep the puck in for those forwards. And if you watch, so this is something interesting, and there's like 4 or 5 teams I've been watching this that carry more offensive firepower. This is more of a coaching element in the systems, that you watch your top 6 guys, your top 2 lines generally spoken for. When they're on the ice, that's the defensemen that are getting scored on, because they're pinching to hold the puck in. Your bottom 6 guys, who's ever on the ice for D, they're not pinching the same. They're holding that neutral zone. They're keeping
their
more.
Bottom guys have struggled and been in the minus because of the fact, like Ryan Reeves has not been as advertised. He's played on the bottom line. And
are you sure? Are you sure he's not as advertised? Is it because who advertised him? The Maple Leafs? Outside of the Maple Leafs, no one said Ryan Reeves.
When I signed him to that big contract. So
I don't think anyone thought and was thinking he's going to be a defensive forward, man. He was there to be a plug and play, right? I mean,
he's not even playing. He's been benched and he's been struggling, and he hasn't even really been in a fight. He's just been chirping. Max Domi is still finding his way. He was a pickup.
Okay, so let me go back. Let me go back, because you're saying the bottom guys. I don't think it's on the defense, though. If you actually go back and look at those goals, very seldom are the goals on the defense. It's actually the forwards. The forwards, for example, the centermen on their bottom 2 lines are not coming back and covering that line. And if they're not coming back and covering that line, they do a lot of a hybrid where they do man-to-man, and then they end up going into a zone when needed. But if you come back and you get pulled over, your man gets pulled over, say, to the left side, your centerman's got to come in and cover off on that, unless the winger got back quicker. And I think their depth is good, but for some reason, like their speed, they're lacking the speed to get back. And that's, I think, affecting them. So anyway, that's a bit of my take.
I think the bigger question for them is what goaltending is, because they can always overcome their system. And I credit where credit is due. Sheldon Keefe can get him playing well, because we've seen it in the last few years. And, forget about the playoffs. They know how to compete and be elite. Yeah. Even with guys that sometimes people say, well, that's not a really good blue line. They're a pretty solid. Morgan Riley's more offensive. I get John Klingberg's new. Liljegren's really taken a step. Giordano, albeit he's playing too much because he's getting to that age, close to 40 years of age, so he can't play as much anymore. But really what it comes down to is goaltending, and Woll is not proven. He's been excellent for them thus far. And Samsonov on that 1-year contract, he has struggled a little bit. I know he can find his game because he had a good season last year, but I think that's the big question for Toronto. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting weekend. I applaud all of the NHL for going there and promoting the game. I know Willie's trying to get his grandma to watch a game because she's never seen him play. And Evan, and you guys can let us know in the comments, where do you think the price range starts for Willie next season for his contract? Is it 10? Is it 11? Or is it even 12?
No, I think he pushes in the 11s, but I think he settles for 10 something.
Wow.
Anywhere between 10.
You think he stays in Toronto?
I actually don't. I think that he's used as your trade chip. I know that he's been. You guys might not like that there. I know he's talked about it. He's very good. Let's remember who his father was.
Yeah.
And they do. Let's remember his last take on how he dealt with negotiations. And let's remember it's a part of negotiation, so you can't be actually upset, at the player.
And the one thing I'll comment, and you guys can let us know, and Hans, I see he's in the chat, so Hans can let us know if Willie will stay or not. Whether or not he should take the discount, given that Marner, Matthews, and Tavares did not. Why should he? Morgan Rielly, you can say if he's part of that 5, but Morgan Rielly's on a reasonable contract of 7.5, I think it is now that's implemented. And Matthews kicks in next year, so that higher cap hit will come in. But you guys can let us know. Let's move over to the Calgary Flames.
Hey, before we move over, you're just talking about. I haven't checked Wolves stats. Looking at the stats right now, in 8 games, Samsonov sitting at an 870. That's a part with a set 3.79.
That's just making a comment. So he's saying that every game his number's going up, and he doesn't believe he's returning to Toronto just because of that cap. That's going to be, even if it goes up by $4 million, right? Because he's going to eat all that up, and they still need to fill other holes. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. 100% agree on that. Yeah, totally agree, Hans. Great point. Okay, Calgary. I wanted to take some time to talk about this one. I know you're going to have some different takes on this one. So, and so Hans, agree. Every game his number's going up, as Pawel said. So, interesting enough, one of the things that I tried to do is, and I'm going to tell and go in the line and say I trusted this source for Sutter. I trusted this source on Iginla, so I'm going to trust this source in Calgary that's connected to the organization of talking about the moves to come. We know there's moves coming. That's just plain sight. That doesn't take anybody can be an insider to say there's moves to come. The question are, who are the big names that are actually out there? We know that Hanifin and Zadorov. Zadorov will be gone by trade deadline. Hanifin will be gone unless they can't get nothing for them. But you already know people are going to want those players. They're going to be great players to pick up, and they'll give up something for them. If it's not now, it'll be by trade deadline. Look for them to push Markstrom. And again, that's a no-brainer. I haven't heard anything on that, but that's a no-brainer with Dustin Wolf wanting him to develop. And frankly, if you think about it, they have enough goaltending.
So he's ready to play. He came in last year and was great. He's ready.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the odd man out would be Vladar because Markstrom's had a solid season this year for them. He's at 905, I think, and 2.92 goals against. He's giving them good goaltending.
But you're not looking for that if you're rebuilding. And they pretty much have made
rebuilding. I think they're retooling. I think they're retooling to be ready for the new arena.
So I'd like to mention that the word retooling, I don't know if everyone's familiar, but the first person to use the word retooling in the NHL was Ken Holland. And he talked about retooling in Detroit. And how did that go? Anyway, that's just some side thoughts. Okay. The 2 players, you guys ready? One's not going to surprise you, but one may. And unfortunately for Flame fans that like this player, look at them to move potentially and being on the market and being discussed. I think a lot of people know Kadri's going to be in that. He's already come out. He's already made a comment. But before that comment came out, I was already given news around the Kadri piece. You guys ready? Coleman.
Blake Coleman. Okay.
So that will be a name because that's someone that you can pick up that can be a really good playoff push for you. Yeah. He can be that complimentary, like, say, Kane was, or like a player like, and he's won cups, right? Yep. So like Kane has, or like Hyman. Maybe he's not their quality, but he's going to bring something in. Back in the day, Calgary, you'll remember this if you're a Calgary fan. Remember John Tonelli. Think about that type. But Coleman can do so much more, and he's very much that veteran you want in the playoffs. So I'm going to say, I mean, obviously, They're really missing that to Foley in that sense. That's a whole other ballgame we should talk about another time. So Kadri, Hanifin, Markstrom, Coleman, and Zadorov, and I expect three to four players gone by the end of the deadline this year.
Well, and you didn't even mention Tanev, who's also on an expiring contract, getting older, and he would definitely.
Oh, sorry, I did have him down there. Yes.
Yeah.
But
would be another pickup.
Yeah, and of the players, so yes, Zadorov, Hanifin, and Tanev are the three that have a high probability. But I do expect that you're looking at Markstrom, Coleman, or Kadri probably going out. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, what about Huberdeau? You know what? The problem here is they're wrecking his value every day. And second group of people out of Calgary have brought to my attention something interesting.
Why don't you just go through the roster?
So, yeah, I know. I feel for them. Edmonton isn't far off either, man. So Huberdeau. The interesting thing about Huberdeau is it's interesting because you're still dealing with essentially the same type of issues that we dealt with Sutter and previous to him in the regime with Brad, the things that were going on all around that. So that's the interesting piece. I know there is a lot of people. I'm just going to go back on just to kind of hit in Hans. Maybe Willie's grandma will convince him to take a hometown discount. Yeah.
Or get his money in Swedish currency.
Well, I'm going to say that Calgary fans, don't hold your breath on Nylander anymore. I do not see that happening anymore. Unless
you see a return of Kadri.
Oh my goodness. Could you imagine? I don't know how that would go down. That would be crazy. Okay. Anyway, any other thoughts on Calgary?
So I do want to mention something about Huberdeau because I wrote up an article. You guys can go check it out. There are two guys in the Hockey Talks webpage today. It's great. It's insightful. It's got some numbers into what's going on with Calgary. Can they turn around? Your thoughts on what's going to happen. The one thing I will say, because I've talked to a few people behind the scenes about what's been going on, there is a difference between playing in the West versus playing in the East. It is much harder, not only on your psyche, but on your physical body, playing in the West than in the East, given the time changes, the time zones, the longer travel, things of that nature. And so people have to understand, he's had a hard time adjusting when he had it a little bit different. I don't want to say better, a little bit different with the Florida Panthers. And when you look at that definitely can play into it. Now, that being said,
that's fair.
It's only his first year into this new contract. Don't panic. Players can always turn it around. There are so many things that you can do. Sports psychologists can get involved. We're looking at that right now up north here and with Edmonton and Jack Campbell. He has to find his game. And sometimes you may have to bury that contract, and maybe Conroy does what Holland did and puts him in the minors for a game or two and then brings him back up after he's played in the AHL. Again, Evan, it may seem bonkers, but sometimes you have to really do something crazy to shake the team up. And Hans is saying, man, Kadri was my favorite Leaf before he left Toronto. You got to tell us, Hans, who's your current favorite player now, right? So Evan, that's all I'm going to say. So you guys can comment below if you think, no, I'm just full of it, and that's fair. I am usually full of it, not as full as Evan, but you know.
So you know what? Why don't we, now that we've touched a little bit on Calgary, we don't want to spend too much time because they're getting way too much time for the way they've been playing. I know there's been an increase. There's been a bump. Let's take 5 minutes and cover the Edmonton Oilers. Let's move 3 hours up north and cover the Edmonton Oilers. So we got a coaching change. We can take a moment about that. We got a little bit of a winning streak, meaning 2 games. And I'd like to mention before you go into a couple thoughts here around this, Pawel, and again, I do want to remind everybody to go on to our website at Two Guys and Hockey Talk. You can find us, Two Guys and Hockey Talk. You can find all of our postings, our blogs, our former guests and such. So make sure you jump on there. And that is actually partnered with us by JR Web Design. So JR Web Designs can develop your website for a price that'll blow your socks off. Actually, it'll blow your skates off, man. Talking in hockey terms. So no, you just want to have a site for fun? Look up. You have a professional site? Look them up. Great job, JR Web Designs. Give them a shot. Okay, so the one thing I want to make mention, I don't know if people realize this. So the Edmonton Oilers, if they can win, you guys ready for this? This is crazy. if they can win the next 4 games, they'll give them 6-game winning streak. They will be 1 point over 500. Which now puts them at only winning 600 hockey for the rest of the season. Like it literally is crazy because right now the wild card cutoff is looking at 97 points. So there's a lot of teams higher. But going back over the last how many years, I think I checked out the last 7, and what we're finding is that wild card cutoff line, the teams that have done well early, only it was 18% are actually holding to those numbers later in the season. So look out. There is some other crazy numbers kind of working around there, and this is in the Oilers' hands. They're going to live or die, and if this doesn't work, they don't make the playoffs. Yeah, this month is live or die. But if they don't make the playoffs, this is going to be my part. You are looking at the Oilers going through a shakeup in players as well. So, and I've actually and a goalie change. A goalie will be replacing Jack Campbell. I'm telling you now.
100%. He's struggled in the minors.
Yeah. And everyone's saying how? Well, be prepared to pay a high price.
Well, anyhow, anything is possible. You throw a 1st or 2nd round pick at it.
Really? Is it? Is anything possible? Not with this team. This team struggles. They always say, "Wow, we got the cap. We got the cap." And
So
they seem to be the only team that can't work around a cap.
So the one thing that to note about this whole quickly thing, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, is they are looking not only at the St. Louis Blues in 2019, but also Florida last year. Last year, Florida struggled a bit and barely scraped into the playoffs. But then they made haywire, and everyone knows how wild they are. Their ride was to the Stanley Cup Finals. And I think Edmonton is looking at that lightning in a bottle. Is it doable? Yes. It's dicey, right? And, of course, Ken Holland in his final year, potential Hall of Fame GM.
Right.
I mean, he is a Hall of Fame GM, essentially. But to add to that, even to the Edmonton regime of Hall of Fames, there is possibility there. Now, the one thing that Edmonton needs to know is that they're bringing in a new coach. I get why they did it. They have to check it out. Chris Knobloch, who coached a lot of these guys, including Connor Brown and Connor McDavid. Whether you think there's some conspiracy or not, that's up to you. But he's been brought in. He's won a game. He's helped them kind of turn the ship around. I think that this falls right now on Holland, but I also think that Jeff Jackson has really started to put a stamp on his team, and he will be potentially the next GM of the Oilers.
Who?
That's Jeff Jackson.
Like permanent or just in the meantime?
Well, he's going to be permanent most likely come next summer when Holland retires.
Oh, wow. So you think he's going to do both double duty?
No, I think he'll bring somebody else in to cover that role.
Oh, okay. So if he goes, you think he'll cover until next year?
Yeah. No, Holland will stay this year, finish off his year unless something goes abysmally awry.
Yeah.
And take over once things can go and put a stamp on his team. This is his team now. He is going to work it out. And so as I was joking with some friends offline, he may bring Alex DeBrincat because that's another one of his former clients. So, but anyways, long story short, Edmonton needs to figure it out because they are in a pinch. They have been struggling. They have been leaking. And for some reason, they can't do man-on-man coverage, and I don't know why. And they've dug themselves in a big hole that it's going to be tough to get out of. I look forward to seeing how this month goes because they, like you indicated, have a big, tough hill. And they're going to southeast states where they're going to fix up the Tampa Bay Lightning, elite team. You know, I know they're struggling. Carolina Hurricanes, never an easy thing. Yeah. And Florida Panthers. How they do against those teams will really indicate where they are. Absolutely. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, let me mention on Chris just a little bit. I don't know if you guys might have heard once or twice. So Chris Knobloch, I'm not going to go through his deep history, but I want to tell you the players that he's coached. So don't forget, he's coached Sam Reinhart when he played for the Kootenay Ice. That was a really big key one. He has done tons of hockey himself. Now, with the Erie Otters, he has coached Connor McDavid. He's coached Alex DeBrincat, Andre Burkowski, Connor Brown, Eric Chernick, Anthony Cirelli, Travis Dermont, Dylan Strome. I want you to remember the Hartford Wolfpack. Who did they bring up? Chittle over into the New York Rangers. If you talk to our good friend, who's one of our former guests and our early 2 seasons, who no longer can come on our show due to the New York Rangers specific rules. Hint, hint. Hey, Alex, we'd love to have you on one day when you're allowed. Maybe we'll
harp on the Rangers a bit.
Maybe we need to apply for credentials so that they can get us on. But very, very important to know that he is an incredibly good coach. He's very much about consistency. He doesn't play favorites. He even sits players like Connor McDavid when he was his first year, when he played with the team. Didn't matter. He believes that you remove ice time for a shift or two, or depending, even if it means it costs you a game. So go if you haven't got a chance, check out anything you can. I do think he's a good coach. He would have been hired before if someone specifically like Woodcroft wasn't hired. That would have been probably the second choice already before he was talked about. But now that they saw what he's done with the Wolfpack, they have one of the best AHL franchises. So he also was in the running, and I announced that earlier. And no, I didn't get it from Alex Thomas originally. But and I'm just saying that because he's not allowed to give me inside information. But I had already mentioned that Chris Knobloch had applied. It was a really silent thing for the job, but there was no way they were giving the Rangers job to a person who was not a veteran. So very bold move by Jackson, and we know it's Jackson who made this call. Okay, we've spent too much time. Let's move on. As we talked about, we want to cover a bunch of other things. Can we talk for a moment, my friend?
I just want to highlight one thing.
Sure. Yeah,
LA
go ahead.
has been an elite team, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Rob Blake there has done a good job, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has been a great fit, and I applaud them for how well they've played because they've really set themselves up to be successful this season. So watch out. That could be a potential dark horse. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to let you comment. You can rebuttal. Okay. I want to go on, and I actually just want to take a little bit of a moment so that we can talk a little bit about my rant today. So our rant today is brought to you by the Sports Empire Network, where you can follow all your podcasts, NBA, NHL, which we're their main content, as well as any other thing around wrestling, NFL, college football, and maybe we should offer a CFL one to them too at some point in time. All right. So guys, thanks to the Sports Empire Network for the rant of the night. Okay, so I'm going to start with a rant of the night. My rant has more to do with Pawel than it actually has to do with anything else. Now, it's because every week he likes to come on and he likes to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins. He likes to belittle the Pittsburgh Penguins. I feel that he's grown up too much around being a Flyers fan, like our Sports Empire Network partner, Keith, who will be a guest with us next month, who loves the Philadelphia Flyers. This is why. He's talked last week, if you go back to our show on episode 10, he talked about how, oh man, look how bad. Yeah, they're not winning. They're not. I mean, we got Jari with 3 shutouts. Listen, they have an 8-6 record. They are right now in a wild card place now, just in 1 week since he was worried about their early start. They're 2 points they're 2 points technically out of a playoff spot, depending how you look at it. But they're 2 behind Carolina, and Carolina has a game in hand. They're only 2 points with the same amount of games against Washington. If you think they've been terrible, keep reflecting, my friend, on the Penguins, because it's time to discuss more than them. It's time to discuss the New Jersey Devils. They have the same games played, and they're a point behind. But I haven't heard you belittling them. How about the Lightning? They have the same amount of points, but they played 1 more game. Or Montreal, Caulfield. Montreal has the same amount of points with 2 more games played. Listen, let's talk about the Minnesota Wild in the West. They got 15 points. They're 1 point less, and they got 1 more game played. These are the teams to discuss, and that is my rant of the night. Go ahead and rebuttal.
Well, thank you. Well, so first off, I'm not trying to eliminate the Pittsburgh fandom here. I love Pittsburgh. I think they're a fun, dynamic team. What I'm trying to get under is your skin, and it has worked. So I applaud that I have my own rant now, or a rant directed at me. Let's talk about some of those teams you mentioned. Minnesota has struggled. It's been goaltending. Gustafsson and Fleury has really struggled. And I'm looking at Who's there? The one that was it Askarov that got drafted? One of their guys got drafted. That Edmonton was supposed to. No, Wallstead. Wallstead was drafted.
Wallstead.
You might as well give him a chance now that you're in Sweden. Montreal, they're supposed to be in a rebuild, Evan. So really, they're performing better than expected. You know, they're probably
no. Look at that team. Look at the players they got. There's no way that they're. Everyone wants to talk about how good they are. I don't agree.
Montreal's in a rebuild. What are you talking about? They're not expected to do anything.
Oh, everybody's talking about. I can go pull up the articles for you all over the mainstream media. But anyway,
the Lightning are missing Vasilevsky. He should be coming sooner rather than later.
Every other team misses players too. Come on.
You're not going to let me finish any. I agree that Tristan Jarry's back now. He's done well. Again, I never count Crosby or Malkin out, and they have really improved. And Carlson has really solidified that power play unit. But what I want to say is that there's games that, like the Edmonton Oilers, they're not playing a full 60 minutes. And I was hoping to see a little bit more. But they have some wear and tear, given how long that team has gotten to the playoffs for 16 plus years and the age of that team. It catches up, and it's a young man's game. Now, the New Jersey Devils, yes, they've struggled, but they also have Jack Hughes out. How do you get Jack Hughes back in? Their dynamic potential Hart nominee in the future here.
Hey, I got a question for you. We'll talk about those other teams, and we will come to what Hans is saying about Buffalo, also injury. We'll talk about Tage Thompson. That 100%, that is a really big one for Buffalo. Otherwise, but that's just recent. They've been struggling. I've been a little worried about Buffalo. I thought they were taking a much bigger step than in Ottawa this year, but they have lots of time to still pull it together. Let's talk for a moment. There's no right or wrong answer. I don't think that we would say on this in hockey, but okay. So Jack Hughes is out, Vasilevsky is out, or a player is out, say for 3 games. They're out for 5, or let's just say 15 or 20 games. Yeah. Whatever it is. Now, a team is looked at and given an excuse because of that, right? But we know players over history, some of the best players play injured.
Yes.
Now, those teams don't get a break. You can say, well, their players are playing injured, but most people do not give them a break. So anyway, your thoughts? Do you think that they actually should be treated differently because they're not giving a break, or only if the player doesn't play? It's just an interesting take, and I'm just wondering.
You mean like taking a break from like playing, like being benched?
Oh no, sorry. No, there's players taking that are off, like Jack Hughes,
Right?
Yeah, like for example, Hans is talking about. They're saying that Jack Hughes might play tomorrow. Okay,
I look at it as this way: injuries can be very dangerous if you aggravate it more and more, and you come back too soon. That being said, if your star is like a McDavid in Edmonton and your team is struggling and you're on this losing streak, you want to bring him back. Granted, the Heritage Classic was a novelty, a special event that he wanted to attend. I get that. You have to be mindful about how you play, but you can still get injured. It's part of the game, right? You have to be mindful of that. That being said, you can't risk potential further injuries, especially if you have aspirations in the playoffs. In the playoffs, it's a little bit different, fewer games, and the intensity is increased, and then you hear about all the injuries right afterwards. But you look at Florida last year and how deep they went, and then you had guys like Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad, Kachuk, all these guys playing super injured, and they still played through because players are, stubborn and they have the tenacity to keep going and, whatever drugs they're taking to get through, but, get a lot of cortisol in you.
Okay.
But during the season, if you have a good record, rest your star players. It's not worth it, especially on the road, right?
I feel like you're getting into a philosophical thought process here. When what I'm saying, and I'm just going to come back, and maybe you did answer it in your philosophical answer. As a philosopher of hockey, I kind of missed it. I'm really ranting on Pawel tonight, aren't I? But in your answer, what kind of gets me wondering, around that is, my question is, let's just go back to the Florida Panthers last year, right? Does anyone think they stood a better chance if I feel like even though those players had it, people looked at it and said, yeah, they were banged up and this and that, right? And they actually said they still were lucky to get there, but they wouldn't have stood a chance against the Vegas Golden Knights. Most pundits are saying that. Now, we're talking people in the know. They do not feel that maybe they would have won a game or maybe two, but they wouldn't have. That's just what overall is said. However, if Tkachuk or Bobrovsky were out of the playoffs and they had the same result with no other injuries, people would have said they lost their top goaltender. They were out. When they lost Tkachuk, they were done. So I feel like when a player plays injured, they're not given the same credit as when a player doesn't play and someone plays in their place, which I feel is kind of unfair. Anyway, that's what I was asking. Do you think it should be justified the same?
That being said, it's so hard to quantify whether or not they would win if they were healthy. They did win one of the games, and I mean, most of the games were competitive except for the one. The one was like 3-9 or something. Like they really got blown out.
Did I hear you right? Did you say it's hard to quantify if they were healthy? Was that correct?
Yes. Like quantify whether or not those guys were saying that they would actually, like if a full healthy roster for the Florida Panthers played a full healthy roster.
Could they have won? Okay.
I'm not saying they would have won. I'm not saying they would have won. It's hard to say because there's puck luck. There's all these.
Okay, that's fair.
But
let's go back to the Lightning.
I still think Vegas steamrolled through them.
Okay, let's go back to the Lightning. You said they're where they are because Vasilevsky's gone. But we can't quantify according to what you just said. We can't quantify it because you said we don't know. Maybe they wouldn't win because there's puck luck and other things like that. Even if Vasilevsky was in net, the Lightning may not be winning. Or Jack Hughes.
Vasilevsky's probably one of the top 3, if not top 2 best goalies right now in the NHL in the last 5 years. And if there was any goalie that I would want in net in Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final that I would want behind the pipes for me would be Vasilevsky. And he makes a big difference. He came back last year. He wasn't 100% versus the Toronto Maple Leafs last series. Yeah. Okay, and he was the reason that they were even in that series at all.
So my opinion in the playoffs, even though they got taken out so quickly and so fast, and especially knowing the injury, now I know that that's past information. People kind of knew during it, just wasn't officially released. I think Matthew Tkachuk was the MVP of the entire playoffs, even losing the entire every game. I still think he was the best on it. And I actually do believe that if Tkachuk had been healthy, I think this would have been a minimum of a 7-game series. If him and Ekblad had been fully healthy.
7 games could have gone either way. The odd bounce, things like that. I still think Vegas was way deeper, and I think they were better equipped. Not only, and goaltending was the one area where, like I said, Bobrovsky was unreal, and Adin Hill was not exactly proven. But the blue line, Vegas, I give hands down. And you're looking at what they're doing this season. Granted, Florida's still playing very well given how many injuries they've had. And Paul Maurice has got him playing pretty good hockey. I've enjoyed watching some games. So you guys can let us know in the comments. One thing I do want to bring up. Go ahead.
Before you get there, I gotta put a plug in for our partners, and I don't want to wait to the end of the show to hit my Revs top 15. Is this core related, or I can get to it after?
We can get to it after.
Okay, let me hit the Revs 15, guys. Revs 15 brought to you guys today by the Kalkaska Battlers of the Michigan Independence Hockey League. Check them out on their YouTube channel. It's their inaugural season of season 4 of the MIHL, and they are partners with us here. We have swag on the way, Pawel. I'm looking forward. Let's hit our number 9
Independent Hockey League. It's fun. They have a game coming up this Saturday.
Did you say Minnesota or Michigan?
Sorry, Michigan. I'm sounding like Evan. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, man. No wonder they didn't want to come on. No, okay. Hey, folks. So I just wanted to bring our Revs Top 15 tonight, our 9th ranked. And I wanted to do this before we got too late. It always seems that we're always waiting late in. And I wanted to get this in 20 minutes in before our show ends. I want to bring to you, now he is not maybe ranked by some in this place because he doesn't score the way some think. I think his game is going to move over well. And his name is Anton Siliev. He is a 6'7", 207 pounds. They are big this year, Pawel. That is playing currently this season in the Continental Hockey League. He's playing with one of my favorite teams, not a good team, but it is the torpedo of the Continental Hockey League, the KHL in Russia. So he's only got 9 points in 30 games. But remember, he is a 17-year-old. And I'm going to say this again. 17, 6'7", 207 pounds. Could you imagine?
Maybe you should go play basketball.
Oh, my goodness. That is crazy. Now, people are excited about this toolkit that he possesses. Obviously, he's got great size. We already know all that. He has good, solid skating, which you've got to be at that stage.
Yeah, Tyler Myers light.
Yeah. What's Tyler weigh in? 230? I'm guessing.
So, yeah.
But, I mean, we're talking 17 years old. I don't know if Tyler can. I don't know what he weighed in. But this guy has really good heads up decision-making process is what they're saying. He could be a top 5 when it all gets said and done. I think that can be quite a stretch if you're trying to push, just because he never really produced the points for that. But you got to wonder, it seems like in the NHL now, they're drafting someone to play defense and someone to play as an offensive defenseman. Now, he is a left-handed defense. So, interesting enough, it seemed like we had no right-handed defense. Now it seems like the new group coming in has been mostly right-handed. So could this be the next guy? I don't know. But, folks, I got him ranked at number 9. And number 9 is Silyav. All right. Tell me what you got, bud.
So this is no easy transition to this topic, but
I think I know where you're going.
There's been an arrest made in the loss of the life of Adam Johnson, who had the accident on skates. And I guess the police in England have really just done their due diligence, done an investigation. Potentially there could be manslaughter charges. We'll see how it goes. We don't want to jump to any conclusions. This is, again, what police do. You can't make any qualms, but we only wish for the best for the family, for both families, and that we hope to see, and I know there's been a lot of talks to the GM talks about potentially neck guards moving forward and what that looks like, and more players wearing it. But you've seen already a few players wear it, including Tom Wilson, who's a big figure in the game. And I think it may start becoming mandated. And I know some older people may grumble and, but, helmets weren't a thing once. Visors weren't a thing once. And here we are. We continue to grow and develop. And the last thing we want is further injuries. And that's not to say that the neck is the only exposed danger spot. As people remember, Evander Kane got cut last year. Freak accident. He was able to get medical attention. So there's no really easy way to say this. Now, I do want to transition to one other, or do you want to comment?
No, I would just, because there's been a lot of talk about the mandated neck guards, and we did talk about the WHL following suit. Not everyone knows that the English Hockey Association immediately mandated it. It's already, not everyone knew that. It was already in the OHL and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League as well, so the whole CHL now across. But the Ontario Athletes Association, especially in hockey, mandated it now. People don't know this, but Dell, that's the German Hockey League, has it mandated as well. Now, interesting, Hockey USA has moved in that direction. If they don't get it done by the end of this year, Hockey USA is going to be having it by the start of next season. Canada's sport minister is already calling on the NHL to mandate players to wear it, which will be interesting. I don't know how much they play. And interesting enough, one of his former teams he played with, God rest his soul, is from the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have already said that they were going to be mandating their American Hockey League and their East Coast Hockey League affiliates to wear. So I haven't got word if it's. I think they're working still on some smaller pieces, but I expect within 2 years that there'll be some versions of it. And my guess is the NHL will have the weakest version of it. That's my guess.
I will say, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, I think the equipment has come so far. The technology behind how these are designed, and what they can do. And even now, the innovation that's happening in the industry, not only for net guards, but in general for protection for hockey players. You've seen it, and you can maybe allude to it for goalie pads and goalie equipment. It's changed so much because you want to be able to protect the player, but you also want to be able to give them the best opportunity to play the best game that they can. So I think it's something that they're going to continue to develop, innovate, and I'm sure you're going to see some pretty cool ideas emerge. Go ahead.
If I can just say this one thing, I'm not saying that I am not the police, right? This doesn't happen often that police get involved in these matters of this, like in a death or a severe injury, even like the Bertuzzi case, right? That was off the ice. I am a little worried now, and I'm not saying this as a defense to anything, but what I am saying is I'm a little worried that they're going to take slow motion replay and use it to show some type of intent and carelessness. And in hockey, we already know a lot of plays look differently for perspective when they're slowed down. If they can take a live action and still determine, I think that's different. So I have a hard time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling with this one for the person that's being called out, but I also understand if I was the family, I'd probably pursue. So this,
I think this is just
very
in the hockey world, and regardless of how you feel about the case itself, no one should have to lose their life playing the best game in the world. That's all.
Exactly.
Now,
okay, go ahead. Transition.
I know it's not an easy transition. I want to talk about the PWHL. They have revealed their jerseys for the upcoming season for January coming up. So we got 6 teams coming in. It's exciting. And Evan, it's not a rant, but it's a bit of a gripe. I don't like them. And I get it. And I know there's been interviews with players because it's essentially the name of the city that they're representing. But come on, you are a new league. You want to promote, get some cool designers to sell material. You want to promote the game, and this is what you come up with. I would understand a third jersey. Sure, that's the name, the Toronto, Boston, whatever you want. But get clever, get creative. And I really enjoyed the Toronto 6 as a name, and you can get really wild. So I think in general, I'm still going to watch. I think in general just failed because that's a media marketing thing you need. What do we talk about in the NHL? What do people love? Some cool, unique jerseys. Even the third jerseys now are being discussed. Whether you like it or not, you can throw out which ones you are. This one behind me, Detroit, the classic style. I love it. There's some cool ones that I like to order. The ones that are indigenous that they've created, whether it's for Vancouver Canucks or the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, the Horsemen, I gotta say, I'm not happy with how they roll this out. I think they need some cool designs. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll see how it looks on the ice, because again, things could change. But just to have the name, and I want to say the New Jersey Devils had just or New Jersey, I think it was, which is kind of a pun, double entendre, New Jersey, right? But people didn't really like that one, and I think you need something different and creative. I don't know your thoughts on what they did.
Okay, so if anyone from the PWHL hears this, we're imploring you to get more creative. Yeah. I'm hesitant because my co-host here is sharing his distaste for the PWHL, and I'm trying to get him on as a partner. But on the other hand, nobody wants a partner that you're just kind of tossing your own. I think that they meant well. I think that they've been struggling, the decision makers. I think that you guys need to go back and look at this, because you missed an incredible opportunity, because right now, my understanding is they are trying to go with an original 6 concept. Yes. And that was the purpose. And someone sold someone a sack of potatoes and made them think it was gold. And so I am 100% agreement with you on these. And I think that they meant well, but they wanted a year to kind of build into the team official name, thinking that, hey, we've done really well up to this point. But unfortunately, there was a lot of things, even in the delay and the drafting, great stuff, great man. People were excited. It took too long. It was drawn out. And so I do think that we got to go back, and who's ever the person who's the commissioner or who's ever doing the creative, got to you got to move quicker. You got to be able to flex quicker and move quicker. Let us be your partner, and we'll give you great ideas. That's what I can say. And they will be successful ideas because we called this league into existence many years ago right here on Two Guys and Hockey
People have
Talk.
been on the show and have gone on to be more successful, minus us. So clearly we're doing some right.
Yeah.
Again,
So,
I'm excited for the league to start. I'm excited for the games in January. I'm looking forward to seeing the ladies play. Again, I just wish there was a little bit more creativity. I understand where they're coming from, but even some different colors and stuff, or like a mini little logo, or something surrounding the PWHL, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
John's
same thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that they're just trying to be extra cautious. And maybe in the end, it is better than getting something and then it fails in something they wanted to be so strong on. So, all right, guys, let's transition over. We only have 9 minutes left in our show. I want to talk about something that's a favorite topic of Pawel's, and that is Alexander Ovechkin. We want to talk about him chasing this record, how he's currently doing. But before I do that, let me segue a little bit into prospects, a little bit of a prospect around a little bit of this, okay?
So what Evan's going to tell you is he's going to get, Alex is going to hire a bunch of prospects to score a bunch of goals for him on the Washington Capitals and say it was him.
Okay, still saying the same thing. This is the short term till they get the right logo. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so... Okay, so let's go ahead and Sil, I missed yours earlier. There you go. Give them time to get the logos right. Yeah, I hear everybody, but I think you missed out on marketing this year because you're going to get less interest without actual team names. Team names are important. I will admit I gave up following my football team in the Canadian Football League when they became the football club because they were going through a name change. And their name change, though, I also agree because their name change, they didn't get right. But here's why. They didn't get the name right because they lied to the people. And this is a whole different story I got to go into. They lied to the people and made them think they had a choice in the name. So I think it's up to the city. Involve your city, and the people are going to be your paying fans to get a feel for what they'll buy for merchandise. That's anyway. Okay. We got to
just take a look at the case study of the Washington Football Club, which the formerly known as Washington Redskins, and what that looked like, right? To change their name, right? So
yeah, that was way too long too. They didn't come up with a name that was outstanding, and
anyway,
they took all that time.
So
I guess my point is, we've already wasted into my time, so I don't even know if I'll get to it now. Actually, I think we'll hold that conversation off. I got two other one little piece, and then we'll go into
Ovechkin. Do it up.
Yeah, we do not have the time to hit an Ovechkin. We just took another 3 minutes of time continuing on this topic. So when you disagree with me, that's okay, but it eats into our time. We'll have to move our. Will Alexander Ovechkin reach his goal of beating Gretzky's record to next week? So we'll start with that next week, right after our guest. Okay. All right. Zylstra disagrees with us both on this show. Zylstra, that's not unusual. You do disagree. That's okay. You are privileged to be wrong. It's okay. Anyway, no, I'm teasing you. Okay. So let's hit on, interesting enough, Mishkov. A lot of people like to say that, maybe, he's failing. He's not doing as good. His development, people forget, at 15, 16 years old, he had to go through the pandemic and missed the development like Wright and a whole bunch of those other guys, even though he was only 1 year behind. He's missed a lot of development. Plus, he's dealt with injury. But right now, at the exact same age as Alexander Ovechkin had 37 games in his 18-year-old season in the KHL, playing for a good team, still playing in the top six, and he got 26 points, 13 goals, 13 assists in 37 games. Mishkov has played, 24 games. That's 13 games less. He has 21 points. So he has 13 games to score just 5 points to match Ovechkin. Only needs 3 goals to match the goal numbers, which is crazy. And he's very equal in those numbers with it. So I do want to say we'll talk more about Mishkov in the coming weeks in December when we talk to Key, who is with the Sports Empire Network, and she is all things Flyers. So we'll talk about Bobby Brink, the rookie, all that stuff. But I just want to mention that as we go into next week and we talk about Ovechkin trying to beat the record. But this is what I got for you. I want you to talk to me. Sidney Crosby. We're going to go out with this. Sidney Crosby.
All right.
He ranks 15th right now. Right now, baby. 15th all-time in points. He is right now, he's got 3 Stanley Cups, junior championships, world championships. I mean, what doesn't he have almost really, right? Except he doesn't have a Memorial Cup. Now he's got all these other trophies.
Bust.
Hey, he's played. He clearly has elite playing level another 3 to 4 years. This guy is amazing. Right now, 19 points, 14 games. He looks like he's no different than he was 4 years ago. I couldn't imagine if he never had that injury during the outdoor game in the Winter Classic in Buffalo.
That he experienced.
Yeah, well, it was mostly the main first concussion, but I hear you. The question remains, is he possibly going to make Mount Rushmore as an all-time great? Because I'm telling you, the guy doing it in the era that he's doing it and how he handily takes it, I don't know. Mark Messier has been the Messier Leadership Award. I feel like that needs to be handed over to Crosby and become the Crosby when he retires Leadership Award. Give me your thoughts on Crosby and if he is heading down towards the Mount Rushmore, should he continue this pace for another 3-4 years?
100%. I think he's been electric, dynamic, a leader on and off the ice. He's really revitalized that market and really brought much success for the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. He could creep up, although I don't know if I'm yet ready right now to announce it in my top 4 of Mount Rushmore of hockey players of who is on there, given the enormous amount of talent over 100 years in the NHL. Wow. And who is number 1, number 2, whatever. But that being said, he could continue to be a great. Now, I think if he wins one more cup, he gets up there. He is probably on my top 4 given how well he has done. And of course, yeah, Hans is right. In the commercials, you couldn't do Tim Hortons commercials. That is just the peak of being right now. So I like what he's brought to his game. I think he continues to elevate him and those around him. He's made players incredible, which we'll have to get into next week. I want to know your thoughts on whether Jake Gensel stays, because that's a big signing next year.
Wow.
But I agree. He has been dynamic, electric, and people, you have to understand, watch him before he retires, because we've had several years of Sidney Crosby, and I don't want it to end.
Oh man, I know. I think right now, as we go in our last couple minutes, we'll give our last 2 final thoughts. My final and Pavel's here, and then we'll go out. I think that if you are following hockey today, there has never been a greater time in the history of the sport to watch so many skill. When we are arguing, is Austin Matthews a superstar?
Yes.
I mean, come on. Here's the problem. If you go back to the days of the 80s, someone like Joe Sakic and Stevie Yzerman couldn't make Team Canada. And it was because they were loaded. You had Howardchuk and Yzerman and Pierre Turgeon and Joe Sakic and Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky and Glenn Anderson and Mark Messier. And I'm just giving you some of those lists. Yeah. I mean, I am telling you, it's like the 80s are back, and yet it's in a totally different era. If you look through the players, and every year the goals they cannot outcoach these guys. These guys are finding ways to come back. I got to say, it's exciting.
I will say one thing about Matthews. He's next to Ovechkin, now the greatest or one of the best current goal scorers in the league. And the way, if you guys watch how he shoots, that little snap wrist in the corner, he is so electric. And now that he's had that surgery on his wrist and shoulder and he's feeling better, he makes it seem easy. He's had, back-to-back hat tricks, Evan, in his first few games starting. Like this guy can score like 60 easily again, if not 70. Wow. He can do what Teemu Selanne did in his rookie season, right?
That's crazy.
Matthews scored 4 in his first game ever. It just goes to show you the talent, the raw talent in the game. So I applaud it. And spoiler alert, Ovechkin will beat Gretzky's record, but we'll get into it next.
Well, we'll talk more later. So, well, guys, it's been another ring-a-ding-dong-dandy. It's been fabulous. I loved all the interaction, guys. I appreciate you. Definitely go on, subscribe to us on YouTube. It does make it easier. Go to our website, Two Guys in Hockey Talk. Check out Pawel's most recent. I have a couple articles. I've been sitting on that Mount Rushmore one has got me off on Crosby. So I'm making some debates right now. It's hard to put current players, but man, oh man. So anyway, all I can say is next week's going to be a dandy. You got a lot of stuff. We're going to come back at you. We're going to talk about this Ovechkin thing. And we look out, because I think what I'm going to do is we're going to put together 2 new segments. It might not be every week, just like a guest headliner, but the 2 new segments will be, we're going to do the Bedard Watch. We're going to talk about Connor Bedard next week. And we also are going to do History Watch or something like that. I'm going to name it. We'll see. You guys come up with a cool name, send it to us. Go to our site or email us at twoguyshockeytalk@gmail.com.
Give
us something on history.
Like back in the day, or like just
no.
I forgot what I had for lunch today, so that's history.
No. I want some history where we're about to make history, like following the Alexander Ovechkin. Is he going to make it? I think that's exciting. Right now, there's been a lot of people on Bedard saying he can make 100 points this year. There's been people saying he can make 40 goals. The goal thing, I'm starting to believe. I don't know about the 100, but you know what? Who knows, man? We got another week to go. There's a lot of stuff going on. Don't give anything away. No spoilers tonight. We're ready to do a wrap. So, as always, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Love you all.
Cheers.
Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get